DragonFlight Season 3 PvP gear and vendors. Now I do realize that Season 3's been out for quite a few weeks right now, and that many steady players probably already have their full set of Conquest gear. But if you are new to PvP, or you're a returning player for PvP in DragonFlight, this is going to be a great video when it comes to covering PvP vendors and gear. Now I'm going to be coming out with other videos following this one to do with other ways of getting gear and upgrading your PvP gear for Season 3. So let's get ready to jump in and look at Season 3 PvP gear and vendors. Hello folks, and welcome to a Wise Game video. So in Season 3 they did really bump up the PvP gear in the game. And again, I will be just covering in today's video PvP gear and vendors. So this is the gear that you're going to get by getting honor points, conquest points, and also world PvP. Located in the main city or the main hub for both factions, Horde and Alliance, is the town called Valdraken. The building you want to head to that's catered to all PvP in the game when it comes to vendors and gear is called Gladiator's Refuge, which is located here on the Valdraken map. So the first vendor we're going to head to is the Honor Gear vendor. Now Honor Gear is one of the starter sets when it comes to PvP in the game, but it's still a really good set of gear. And this vendor is located in the back of this round-shaped building. Or I should say circular. Once you accumulate honor points in the game, which honor is given by doing most PvP in the game, especially Battlegrounds. Once you have enough honor points, this is where you're going to come to spend it to upgrade and get your PvP set of honor gear. And also weapons. In Season 3, the honor gear and weapons now jumped up to the base item level of 415. And in a PvP situation, they're going to go up to 476. And the honor gear is also upgradable by 8 levels. A little more about the upgrading in just a moment. Now standing to the left of the honor vendor, we have the Conquest vendor. And Conquest gear is the highest gear in the game when it comes to PvP. So let's give this gear and weapons a look. But first, a little bit about collecting Conquest points on a weekly base. Conquest points is given rapidly by doing actual rated PvP in the game. So if you do rated arenas, rated RBGs, which is rated battlegrounds, so on and so forth, that's the best way to get conquest points in the game. But they are also rewarded too by doing random battlegrounds on a daily base. And the first win for that battleground for the day is going to give you the most amount of conquest points. Keep in mind that these do reset each morning at 8 o'clock a.m. West Coast time, which is 11 o'clock a.m. East Coast time. So for example, queuing up and winning your first random battleground for the day is going to give you 70 conquest points. And then you also get conquest points too by doing PvP, putting on war mode, and banging out weekly quests. So these are specifically PvP weekly quests, which is another great way of collecting conquest points. The item level in Season 3 for Conquest gear now is going to be based at 454 item level, which is going to increase to 489 in a PvP situation. And just like the honor gear, these are upgradable by 8 levels. Again, a little more about that in just a moment. But now in Season 3, they did make a wicked change when it came to conquest points. And what that is that there is no longer a weekly cap. So that's right, which means now you could collect a boatload of conquest points on a weekly base. Now heading back to the entrance of this building now, we're going to see 2 more vendors. Now these vendors actually reward you by doing War Mode World PvP. So this is another great way of getting gear and weapons in the game for PvP. So the person standing closest to the entrance here is this small guy, and he carries some decent blue starter sets when it comes to PvP. It's similar item level wise to the honor sets. And the main currency you need to use for this vendor right here is called bloody tokens. And the cap for bloody tokens is 200,000, so you could hold quite a bit of this. Bloody tokens is given by doing certain War Mode World PvP events, such as the weekly quests. And having War Mode on and you do normal, regular PvE World quests can also reward bloody tokens. But again, you must enable War Mode. Now right now for Season 3, his standard item level is 431. But then it's going to jump up to 473 in a PvP situation, such as Arena, Battlegrounds, and also in a World PvP fight. And he does carry both weapons and gear. Now standing to the left of him is this other larger vendor, and her name is Militia. I call her Mal for short. And she carries the gear that you could get from doing this World PvP, but it's more on the level of Conquest. So again, the weapons and the gear that she carries is very similar to the Conquest gear when it comes to item levels. Now the currency needed to get Mal's gear and weapons is you're going to need the bloody tokens, and you're also going to need Trophy of Strife. Trophy of Strife is not easy to come along in the game, because as far as I know, unless if they changed it in 10.2.5, the only way that you really get this, especially by doing PvP, is by the weekly quest I've been showing you guys right along in today's video, which is called the Sparks of Life. So each week on Reset, which is every Tuesday, they're going to come out with a new Sparks of Life weekly quest. And each week it's going to be named after a different area or zone. So for example, the Sparks of Life, the Wagon Shore. But each week it's still going to give you the same rewards. And what you get for this when it comes to Trophy of Strife is 8 per week. Now it does not sound like much, but thank God, to buy the gear and the weapons in the game only calls for about 5 to 7 Trophy of Strife. But now what's really awesome is that if we notice here too that Mal also has Trophy of Strife that you could actually buy from her. And this calls for honor points. So this is great if you're fully honored gear, you're sitting on a boatload of honor points. This is a great way to come and spend your extra honor points. And then with the Trophy of Strife and your bloody tokens, you can now purchase this gear. The item level of this gear and weapons starts off at a base item level of 450. And it goes up in a PvP situation to 486. Now you may notice some differences between this and Conquest gear. Conquest is going to be a little bit higher with certain things, and Mal's gear is going to be a little bit higher with certain things also, which is called the Hellblooms. The reason for this is because Conquest is strictly given by doing PvP objectives, where Mal's gear is given by doing World PvP. Now, another way of getting PvP gear in the game, this is a very early starter set, is either by crafting it or going to the auction house and buying the crafted gear. And again, these are called Verdant. Now, I'm not going to go too much into details with this part. I'm going to go over this pretty quick. I don't do crafting myself, so I'm not a person to actually explain this. So at the crafting station, we could see the Verdant gear. So these are going to start off at item level 399, and then they're going to jump up to 463 in arenas and battlegrounds. And then we're at the auction house now, and we could see by putting in Verdant again in the search field you're going to be able to find some PvP gear here. And it's basically the same gear we just looked at the crafting station. Now, in the bottom, it does say in red that it requires Dragon Isles tailoring for this piece right here. You know, if it's plate, then you need blacksmith and so on and so forth. I'm not really sure if you need to have that profession to actually equip these pieces of gear. If somebody knows more about that, please leave a comment down below. Thanks. So that's basically how you get most of the PvP gear in the game for DragonFlight. Although I do want to mention one thing, and this is going back to crafted gear. Now, I don't know a lot about this, I just want to share what I do know. So, if you actually get PvE gear in the game, the Honor vendor and the Conquest vendor both sell these items that you could craft into PvE gear, like dungeon gear, and it's going to add the PvP stats to those items. So it's going to say at the bottom, once you do this, that this item's going to go up, blah blah blah, so and so item level in a PvP situation. Which is pretty cool. There is a ton of videos on YouTube when it comes to DragonFlight crafting. Now that we got our PvP gear, we want to look at upgrading our PvP gear. So in DragonFlight, you could upgrade many pieces of gear and sets. And this goes for both PvP gear and PvE gear. As long as you see the number on top that it's upgradable by, say, like 1 out of 8, so on and so forth, that's a piece that could be upgraded. Now, depending on what gear you're upgrading, depends on the items you're going to need to upgrade that gear. So with most of my gear, we're going to see that it's grayed out because they're already upgraded up to 0.8. Or I should say that they've been upgraded already 8 levels. So they can't be upgraded anymore. So basically, you're just going to get the piece of gear that you want to upgrade, put it into the slot here of the upgrader, and just mouse over it. It's going to let you know what item you're going to need to upgrade that piece of gear. So the piece I'm showing right now needs 33 flight stones. And almost anything you do in this game is going to give you flight stones. And again, we're talking about level 70s. And that's to go up each level. Now, if you have enough of those items, then you could go up all 8 items, or whatever your piece of gear calls for. Now, the higher the piece of gear is, the more intricate it gets as far as the items you're going to need. So for my Conquest piece right here, we could see that there's 2 items needed to upgrade to the next level of this gear. 120 flight stones, and also 15 of the Drake Dreamer crest. It's actually called the Drake's Dreaming crest. And these were just recently added to DragonFlight. Now, the downfall if you just PvP in the game, which is all I do on this character, you will never get these drakes. The reason being is because PvP does not supply these drakes. These usually come from mythic dungeons. But then it also says that they're also obtainable by doing certain outdoor activities. Normal difficulty, Yggdrasil. So maybe there is a possibility with outdoor activities. Okay, now I want to add, because this is very important. Now, I've also said this in all my other past videos, but if this is the first time watching a Wise Gamer video on PvP gear and vendors, upgrading does not work at all when it comes to PvP. So you must be asking yourself, then why do I want to upgrade my PvP gear? Well, it's safe to say it's definitely not going to help. So if your Conquest gear says that it's going to go up to 489 in a battleground, it's going to remain at 489. So now on DragonFlight, they also introduced this other system to the game, and I wasn't sure if I was going to cover it in today's video, but I figured to make this a complete PvP gear and weapon guide, why not? So when I started doing battlegrounds and stuff again in DragonFlight, I started to notice that some of the highest damage players was wearing these pieces of gear, and I thought that they were PvE like raid gear. And I'm like, here we go again, the game's going back to Legions where PvP gear does not matter any longer. But come to find out, I was wrong. This is pretty much another upgrade system that they added in DragonFlight called the Revival Catalyst. Now I will show the bare basics about this in this video, but I'm going to add a link in the description panel of today's video for the full description of how this works. So as we know, most PvP gear in the game does not have any set bonuses, like we see on very powerful raid gear. But with the Catalyst system, you can now set bonuses and they're really good on your PvP gear. So Conquest gear, Honor gear, so on and so forth. I do recommend saving this for your Conquest pieces. And this is usually added to 5 pieces of gear in your whole set. So you can't do this to all the pieces that you get in PvP. So the place you need to go to is in Taldrassus. If you use coordinates in the game, it's going to be 59.53 and 53.71. And it's a building that's built into the side of a mountain. Going to go into the very top entrance. Warning here, if you are in war mode, there is a lot of war mode ganking going on at this area. But the good news is that of course you don't have to be in war mode to actually come here. Deep inside, you're going to see the Revival Catalyst. So again, for Season 3, the gear that can be converted into tier set pieces is your PvP gear, Veteran Ranked PvE gear, loot from certain mythic dungeons and raid dungeons, and also loot from outdoor world bosses. Now, at one time to kick this off and use it, they had a quest that you had to complete. I never did the quest. A friend of mine took me here, showed me how to use it, and I was able to use it. But again, that link I'm going to have in the description panel will have more information about this. Now, to be able to use this, you're going to get an item. And this item you don't seek out and collect. The game gives it to you every week on reset, which is Tuesdays. So players are automatically going to gain 1 charge every 2 weeks in Season 3. But I thought I read somewhere that they ended up changing that where we get it each week. I'm not 100% sure about that though. And you have to use one of these items to do each upgrade. You can only have 6 charges per character, and all your characters in the game that are not level 70s also get these each week. So now once you go to the Catalyst, you're going to add the item that you want to upgrade, and this item will automatically populate if you have some. Again, only use it on the best gear that you possibly can. You're just going to follow all the instructions, and again, if you're not sure, just go to Icy Veins link that I have in the description panel. And voila, you're going to end up with this awesome piece of PvP gear with set bonuses now added to these pieces, giving you an awesome set of gear. And then the last thing that we want to wrap up on when it comes to getting your gear and weapons in the game from PvP is, of course, if you do a lot of raided stuff. So if you do like arenas, raided battlegrounds, so on and so forth, you're going to be able to get an item each week from the Great Vault. These are randomly given, they're RNG, you don't know what you're going to get, but this is something else that you could check each Tuesday on reset to see if you got a bonus piece of gear. So I know this has been a pretty long video, but you do have to admit that we did touch all angles when it comes to getting PvP gear in the game and the vendors. If anything changed, if I gave you some incorrect information, so on and so forth, always check the comment section of the video, where I will update this information. And I also want to hear from you folks too, if there's something else that I forgot that you want to add. So I want to thank you guys if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell notification down below to get notified of more awesome videos coming your way. And there we have it, folks. There's our wrap up for Season 3 PvP gear, weapons, and vendors.